What up, guys? That Comic Awesome here doing another review, doing Moon Knight 194, and I'm really trying to find the words. I really don't understand why I continue buying this. I think I buy this book just to roast at this point, because there is nothing, absolutely nothing good about this. What this book feels like is how I imagine a pretentious person thinking, I'm going to teach a lesson through a comic book character and have nothing to do with the comic book character. So this is billed as Moon Knight's origin, which we all know Moon Knight's origin. He was killed in the whatever in Egypt at the statue of the moon god and possessed him. He split percent, blah 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 blah. But this is like when he was a kid, like really what like keeps him up at night. And so you get this. I'm gonna go out like I don't. The cover is kind of cool. Like I like it, but I don't know. Let's just jump in. I'll diagnose as I go. So you get this, Marc and his good old friend are talking about, how his life is now, and, he's like, oh, I need to do something with my life that isn't, being a superhero anymore, because, like, it's, just too much crazy stuff. And he's like, oh, you could be an actor. He's like, well, I want to do something with my creative side. And he says, I get it. You, Marilyn, and I can't get over his daughter's name, Beatrice. Without horrifying super freaks and annoying elderly sidekicks to deal with, no more living scared. And he says, no more living scared? For that, I'd need a whole new family and upbringing. And I could sleep at night. What a difference that would make. Or what difference would that make? And he says, oh, because I wouldn't have been Jewish. It's like, one, I didn't know. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm not overly familiar with Moon Knight, but I don't think Marc Spector was ever really plotted out as, as a Jew or anything like that. But I know Max Bemis is, and to me, this isn't Moon Knight and it's not Marc Spector. This is Max Bemis telling his fear story of how he's scared of being Jewish. So we start off, and he sits here and he pretty much says, for me not to be scared, I pretty much have to not be Jewish. So then he goes and he starts the story off, and again, it's billed Moon Knight origin. There's this old rabbi, and he tells a pretty funny joke, and he bills it as a Jewish joke, but it's actually just kind of a funny joke. So he says, so a man comes to God and says, he's like, oh Lord, I gave my son the most expensive bar mitzvah. I gave him everything I ever had wanted. Made him feel like he was the center of the universe. And after all of that, he comes home on the Sabbath and says, Dad, I'm coming to you. I'm becoming a Christian. And I feel like a failure. And then he says, the Lord shakes his head kind of lackadaisically and says, funny you should come to me with this problem. And I just think of Eddie Murphy's character, not the main character in Coming to America, but the side character in the barbershop, and he's like, aha, you get it? Because it's a funny joke. But then there's this, he talks about how, like, pretty much only Jews can tell Jew jokes, and, how they do that because they, have a chip on their shoulder, and, they're this and that. Makes no sense. There is, I will say, one one clever thing that I did not pick up on when I was reading it the first time, but as I go back and look at it, there is a little bit of foreshadowing, and I didn't pick up on it, and I hate to say this, it was actually fairly decent. So right here, he's watching TV, and he's talking about kind of, Jews being able to make fun of themselves, and there's this line of a TV show, and it says, "I want to talk to you about Dr. Wheatley. I have a suspicion that he converted to Judaism purely for the jokes." And it says, "And this offends you as a Jewish person?" "No, it offends me as a comedian." Now, anybody who's anybody knows that's a line from Seinfeld. But, again, this is clever foreshadowing, and we'll cross that road. So then, he helps out at this, elderly, rabbi's office, and, they're all talking about the suffrages and this and that of being a Jew, and he talks about the Shoah. He talks to his dad, and he's like, "Dad, what's the Shoah?" And I have a really hard time. I mean, I'm thinking back when I was a kid. I mean, he looks like he says he's prepubescent, but he looks like he's, I don't know, 12. I'm trying to remember when we studied in world history, like World War II. And even not even that, I remember knowing about, like, the Holocaust and World War II and all of that stuff due to movies and cinema and literature and stuff like that. It was very apparent what the Holocaust was. And, like, he asked Dad, he's like, what is that? Like, what is it? And his dad has to kind of give him the watered down, like, Mickey Mouse answer of, like, well, there was a big war and blah, blah, blah. People called it a world war and this and that. And it's like, oh, what's the big deal? I mean, that's something a desensitized sociopath says when finding out that, like, millions of people died. Just like, what's the big deal? So then, him and the rabbi hang out, and, they're having a good time. And he's like, "Oh, I want to hang out with you some more, Rabbi, because my home life sucks, because my dad's a weirdo." And he's like, "Sure, come over after 7. So then he, like, is talking to his dad, and it's very clear now, too. Maybe this is more of the origin. His dad, like, he talks about his dad just, like, zoning out and, like, freezing and not, looking like he's trying to think of something and can't. He's like, "I wish I would have known what I know now and could have gone back and told him, like, I kind of know what you're going through." Which I think every kid kind of has that feeling with their dad. Like, once you become an adult and you sit down with your dad, like, as an adult, and you're like, "I understand what you went through when you were raising me," kind of thing. But so it's foreshadowing that obviously his dad even had some sort of psychosis. I don't know what it would have been, but if it's the same type of multiple personality or dissociative identity disorder or whatever. So anyways, so little Mark Spector goes to visit the rabbi, but he's a little bit early. He gets to be eager, and he's looking for, like, hidden treasures in, like, the rabbi's office, and he falls at one. So he pulls up in the wrong direction on this, like an idiot. It pops open. He falls backwards, and then somehow manages to fall forward. I mean, I don't think that's a mental problem. I think that's just you being an idiot. So then he finds, the rabbi down there, and it turns out that he's not the rabbi that he thought he was. That he actually is, like, a Nazi war criminal who, like, passed as a Holocaust survivor to be able to come over to the States, but the only way to, like, keep living is to kill Jews. That's his, like, thing. He's like, the only way to, pretty much, keep living is to, stimulate the dark pleasures, of the human brain. He's like, and what I enjoy is killing Jews. And it's like, Alright. So, I understand, as a kid, you take the whole Jewish thing out of here. This is a traumatizing situation. But then he goes off into, you know, this, like, very odd display. Because then it's like, he pretty much explains the Holocaust. He says, you know, but none of this should frighten you more than what we accomplished together as a nation less than a century ago. And pretty much, like, as, again, over this very nice kind of, you know, him trying to live a normal life, this is what still runs in the back of his mind. You know, they refer to the Holocaust as organized murder of approximately 6 million Jewish human beings. Imagine they came law to kill your family, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, again, so if I'm a kid and I'm reading this book, you know, hey, look, this is a history lesson on what the Holocaust was. But it's not only that, but then he says, you know, that's all fine, well and good, you know. But then he says right here, people like me will always be out there waiting to come back for you. And then, of course, what does Max Bemis do? He punches a Nazi. Nazi style. There is a little bit of a cute part at the end. It's not even cute. I don't even know. This book sucks. It's pandering. It's... I don't even know who this would have been written for. Like, I don't know. Like, it blows my mind that this actually became, like, a mainstream comic book. Like, this seems like a pamphlet like the JCC hands out, you know, in... I don't even know where they would hand that out. Like, I don't know. I'm at a loss for words. Subscribe over here. Watch some more videos. Hit me up in the comments. Let me know what you guys think. And I'll see you next time.